All right, folks, before we head back to court, I want to bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us to discuss is Los Angeles-based criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. Silva, great to see you as always. Thank you so much for being on the show with me tonight. And I want to get your general thoughts on this case, especially with the idea of the situation, late at night, high-risk stop. We heard some of that in the testimony we just heard, but also with the backdrop of the fact that the defendants on trial in this case are being painted as the people who are not perhaps the protagonists here. They were involved. They certainly did some things that are wrong, but this is a second-degree murder case, and I think the defense is focused on maybe getting them off on that charge.
Yeah, first of all, Michael, thank you so much for having me. You know, I adore you immensely. And gosh, on every level, Michael, this case gives you, it's everything that's wrong with policing when it comes to certain issues. Now, I will say it is the toughest job in the world. There's no two ways about it. You never know if a simple traffic stop is going to lead to violence. And Hemphill talked about that, the officer testifying about how inherently dangerous these stops can be. But there's such a stark difference in this case. Yes, he was running away. Yes, you should comply, you should stay. But the issue of this case is the groupthink gang violence that erupted from the police. You have horrible statements made by some of the officers. Officer Hemphill, he actually said, I hope they beat his, the ending of that. He wanted him, he actually was the first officer to actually tase him or use his taser. And then this eruption of violence escalates. And I think that's that theory of that second-degree murder issue, is that every single officer, regardless of what their role was, outside of Hemphill, the main officers here, whether one kicked or one hit or one tased, they are equally liable, because without the escalation, we wouldn't be here. They all fed each other's rage, their wrath, if you will.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? You can see where the defense is going in the questioning of Hemphill. Yeah. As you mentioned, they're going to this point where, it's a high-risk stop to begin with. When he starts to run, it becomes even higher risk. And they're going to use that to try to explain the behavior. And then they're going to point the finger at the guy who initiated the stop. This guy, Officer Emmett Martin, who's not on trial here. Yeah. He's going to stand trial separately, because they're going to point the finger at him as the protagonist. But it sounds to me like you don't think that there's different levels of culpability because of the way this went down.
Again, Michael, this case is exceptional in that the video is so unbelievably intense and violent. The words that are used by all the officers are intense and violent, and the escalation, right? So I think that's what differentiates this case, is that even, let's say, a lower culpability officer is using words that are essentially, let's do this, let's beat him up. This is not what police are supposed to do. Submission, calming the situation down. It looked like he was not a threat from what I saw in any capacity. Again, I do want to mention, it is the toughest job in the world. We respect police officers, but there's always going to be that bad people in every kind of case where stress gets to them and they lash out. And that's what appears in this case. These men were obviously under a lot of stress. They were part of a team, the Scorpion team, that was so respected. It almost feels like they thought they could get away with anything, because violence of this nature, no matter who it is, it's never allowed. It's not ethical. Yeah. So it is an unethical case, and it reeks at the soul, because this young man doesn't really, I just don't see what he did to deserve this level of intensity.
And Silva, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, as you mentioned. This kind of thing happens because it's allowed to happen and fester and grow, and these guys felt they could get away with it at the end of the day. All right, stand by. I want to take folks back inside the courtroom now. On the stand, again, Preston Hemphill. He is a former Memphis police officer. He was involved in that initial stop. He's now talking about drawing a gun when he and the Scorpion team approached Tyree Nichols' vehicle after he allegedly didn't stop the first time.
Officer. At that time, I was a police officer for about 3 years.
And how long have you been on the Scorpion?
About 3 months.
And how often can estimate, had you pulled over cars?
Probably every day.
Ever worked that
Yes, sir.
for 3 years?
Yes, sir.
And this was the first time the car had fled and then stopped?
Yes, sir.
Describe what happened when you got there.
When I arrived, I saw Haley and Martin approaching the car. I drew my pistol because a high-risk traffic stop, and since he stopped, like what's fixing to happen, once I saw Haley and Martin getting into the car is when I put my pistol up and ran up to the car.
Who approached the driver's side?
Haley.
And what was he saying?
I don't remember.
Was he demanding that the driver get out of the car?
I don't remember what he was saying.
Did y'all get the driver out of the car?
Yes, sir.
Who did?
Haley got him out of the car.
How? Describe how he got him out of the car.
If I recall, he opened up the driver door and pulled Mr. Nichols out of the door.
Okay. You're familiar with the Memphis Police Department force continuum, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of those levels is empty hands control, correct?
Yes, sir.
2 categories, soft and hard.
Yes, sir.
Empty hands means no weapon in your hands, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was Demetrius Haley using empty hands control to get Mr. Nichols out of the car? Or the
Yes.
driver out of the car?
Yes, sir.
Did you know who the driver of that car was at that point?
No, sir.
Until you got there, did you know how many occupants were in the car?
No, sir.
Did you ultimately learn that the driver of that car was Tyree Nichols?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did either Martin or Haley know who the driver of that car was at that time of the stop on Ross and Reigns?
No, sir. Not to my knowledge.
What happened when Haley got the driver out of the car?
He tried to get handcuffs on him behind his back. At that time, he was struggling with us, and
Who was he?
Mr. Nichols.
Where was Haley initially trying to get the cuffs on?
He was pushing Mr. Nichols against the A-pillar between the door of the car and the car itself, trying to turn him around so he can get his hands behind his back.
And what did the driver choose to do at that time?
He refused to put his hands behind his back and managed to turn around and be facing toward Haley.
And how close were you at that time?
Maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet.
And how close was Martin at that time?
I don't recall.
All right, so Haley's attorney outlining the difficulty of the initial interaction with Nichols. Welcome back to CourtTv Live. I'm Michael Ayala. We're going to go back to Memphis, Tennessee now. For the beating of Tyree Nichols' murder trial, 3 former Memphis police officers are now in state court for their second trial in the beating death of Tyree Nichols. The trio have already been convicted on federal charges. Now, in January of 2023, the beating of Nichols was caught on police surveillance video and led to national protests. I want to go back inside the courtroom now. We're hearing from a former police officer. His name is Preston Hemphill. He was involved in that initial stop, and he's testifying about what happened when the Scorpion team started chasing Nichols on foot.
What, during that time when the driver spun around in the A-frame, what did you hear Martin say?
I heard Martin scream, "Let go of my gun."
What did that statement by a fellow officer mean to you?
That someone's probably fixing to get hurt.
Explain why.
Because if you bring a gun into this, it could go deadly.
Our officers trained in gun safety.
Yes, sir.
Is it a serious matter to keep control of your service weapons at all times?
Yes, sir.
Is it potential? Are you taught that it's a very serious situation if you lose control of your service weapon?
Yes, sir.
How did Martin's announcement change the risk at Ross and Raines at that time?
It increased the risk.
How much?
As high as it can go to me.
Okay. And what happened next?
At that time, I heard someone say, "Take him to the ground."
Do you recall who said that?
I believe it was Haley.
And
We took Mr. Nichols to the ground. He was still resisting with us. I ended up pulling my taser out. I switched it on, but never had any electricity running through it. I put it against his thigh and told him I was fixing to tase him. At that point, we had him under control for a split second. I went to go attempt to put my taser up. He broke free, and that's when Haley pepper sprayed him.
And what happened with the pepper spray?
It sprayed everybody.
Who is everybody?
Haley sprayed himself, Martin, myself, and Mr. Nichols.
Okay. And you said Mr. Nichols broke free, correct?
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by broke free?
He managed to stand up. At that point, I went to go bear hug him to hold him at the scene. He broke free from me, and at that time I saw him running toward a squad car that was still running with the door open, and that's when I fired my taser.
And what happened with the taser shot?
It had no effect.
Do you know whether it made a good connection with the driver?
I know it did not make a good connection.
Did you know it at the time?
At that time, no, sir.
What happened next?
After he fled from us, myself and Haley tried to chase after him. During that, I also didn't have my glasses. Haley was succumbing to the pepper spray. I was feeling the pepper spray then. At that time, we quit the chase. I put it out on the radio, the description, and what direction the suspect ran. And I helped Haley back to his car.
Why didn't she have your glasses?
During the scuffle on the ground, it fell off.
And glasses pretty important to your vision.
Yes, sir.
How far did you run after the suspect?
Probably a block.
Southbound Ross?
Yes, sir.
How about Haley? How far did he run?
Probably about a block and a half. He was ahead of me.
Pretty obvious, but neither one of you caught him, correct?
Correct.
And that's the point when you stopped that you contacted dispatch on your radio, correct?
Yes, sir.
You said you put it out on the radio.
Yes, sir.
What exactly did you put out?
I put out on the radio that the taser was deployed, pepper spray was used, the suspect was last seen running southbound on Ross, and the clothing description.
General description.
Yes, sir.
And that he had fled from the stop.
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned that you had helped Haley.
Yes, sir.
Describe that for the jury.
So after we weren't chasing anymore and I put out the description, Haley was walking back toward me. He said that he couldn't see because of the pepper spray, and I had to escort him back to his car so that he could get his water bottle to attempt to flush out his eyes.
Tell the jury about the flushing out of the eyes.
So with pepper spray, you just really try to get as most out of your eyes that you can, but even water doesn't really stop the pain. It just temporarily stops it.
Pepper spray that Scorpion officers carry is very strong, correct?
Yes, sir.
Stronger than you can buy at the sporting goods store, correct?
I don't know.
Okay. It's issued to you as part of your equipment, correct?
Yes, sir. It's issued to all MPD officers.
All MPD officers. And if it's used, you have to weigh the canister about how much it's used, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long were you, am I correct that you spent some time dumping water on Haley's face and eyes at his request?
Yes, sir.
He was literally trying to pry them open, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll stop it there for a quick break, but when we return, we're going to see some of the police body cam leading up to the beating of Nichols. Keep it here on your front row seat to justice. We're watching day 3 of testimony in the beating of Tyree Nichols' murder trial in Tennessee. Demetrius Haley's defense attorney is showing clips of the police body cam footage capturing the traffic stop back in January of 2023.
Nichols' car. Who is that?
That is Officer Martin.
All right. Do we see Haley in this clip yet?
Yes, sir. Right there on the far left of the car on the left side by the tail light.
I understand.
Okay. Y'all are really going to stay on top of me on this, okay? So I hit pause at 20:24:46. Ready? Do you recognize that voice that said, you heard what it said?
Yes, sir.
Whose voice is that?
Officer Haley.
Is that called verbal judo?
Yes, sir.
Trying to stop it at 20:24:58. We heard a voice saying, I'm not doing anything, something like that. Whose voice was that?
Mr. Nichols.
And whose voice is that saying, I? Whose voice is that?
I believe that's Mr. Nichols also.
Let's see if this one's bad. And that was at 20:25:01. 20:25:01 using wristwatch time is 8:25. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
At 20:25:06, someone said, don't do that. Whose voice is that?
Mr. Nichols.
And whose voice was that said, get on the fucking ground?
That's my voice.
Is that verbal judo?
Yes, sir.
Are you ashamed of that kind of language?
Yes, sir.
Whose voice was that says, I'm going to tase your ass?
It's my voice.
We heard a voice saying, tasing. Whose voice was that?
Martin.
At this time of this arrest, was this a lawful traffic stop?
Yes, sir.
The mission of the Scorpion team, as directed by the Memphis Police Department, was to make traffic stops on infractions which may be minor in order to come into contact with those people that may be taking part in illegal things. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You're not the one that made that policy, is that right?
Yes, sir. I did not.
By the way, I stopped it at 20:25:14. Now, that is the picture of what, sir?
Mr. Nichols.
I stopped it at 20:25:22. It appears Mr. Nichols is looking up at you. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What's he saying to you?
That he's on the ground.
His left arm is held by someone's arm, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Whose arm is that?
At this time, I don't know.
Who just said what we just heard?
Officer Haley.
Oh, you don't catch me. I stopped it at 20:28. I'm sorry, 20:25:28. Starting up again. Whose voice is that at 20:25:37?
Officer Haley.
And then what about the statement, y'all are really doing a lot? Whose voice is that?
Mr. Nichols.
Was Mr. Nichols complying with the directions of these three officers?
No, sir.
Starting up again. Whose voice stopped at 20:25:44? Whose voice was that about getting on his stomach?
That was my voice.
Did he get on his stomach?
No, sir.
Did he ever get on his stomach?
No, sir.
At 20:25:47, someone said spraying. Who was that?
I believe it was Martin.
I'm going to stop right here at 20:25:54. You've given a number of statements to the FBI, the Memphis Police Department, and also to the District Attorney's Office that indicated that Mr. Nichols was able to lift and push you, Haley, and Martin off of himself.
Yes, sir.
Was those true statements or not?
Yes, sir.
And how much do you weigh?
About 275.
And how much does, in your approximation, Mr. Martin weigh?
Probably about 250, 270.
And Mr. Haley?
About 250, 270.
You sure you're not just making that up to exaggerate that Mr. Nichols pushed you three guys off of him?
No, sir.
Starting again at 20:25:54. Was that an attempt to fire a taser?
That was, yes, sir.
And then we saw Mr. Nichols do something. What was Mr. Nichols doing?
Taking off his jacket.
That was at 20:25:59. At 20:26:19 or 8:26 p.m., I see a figure appears to be walking back towards you. Who is that?
It's Officer Haley.
Haley got ahead of you, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Officer Haley's up front, chase is on. I want to bring back in our guest, still with us, Los Angeles-based criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. Now, Silva, I'm thinking as I'm watching this testimony, what a great witness this is for the defense. Because what he's doing is, if you're a defense attorney here, you don't want any of your guys to take the stand. There's three different defense attorneys, but none of them want their guys to take the stand. This guy is basically testifying for them. He's explaining how risky the stop was. He's explaining, I tried to hit him with my taser, didn't work. We pepper sprayed him, didn't work. He pushed us off. I weighed 275 pounds. It sets the stage for the escalation. He's been a great witness, really, for the defense.
It is. And Michael, it shows you the stress, agitation, and anxiety of the officers. But it also shows the fear and the innate, literally the fear of the young man, of Tyree trying to run away, because he realizes also he could lose his life. Remember, his mom's house was about I think it was about 2 minutes away from the scene. Now, it's true, I always advise my clients, comply. Complying prevents escalations like this. But what he's doing really well right now is talking about, look, I was frustrated. We were trying just to get him to comply. And really, what the thought process was of all of the officers. The argument becomes, though, what is enough? And this is the first part before the biggest takedown beating that's about to occur that essentially kills this young man. But Hemphill is a great witness. I mean, he is calm. He comes off incredibly credible. There's even fear in his voice. It's a slight little insecurity when he's talking about, it's almost like he's transported back in the situation. So it does do a great job showing the frustration of the officers. The issue, though, is officers are also trained not to have this groupthink gang mentality that sets fire to each other. And I think also the quotations that the body cam captures is damning as well. It's not just have him comply, it's beat his A. It's just the language also shows you how doing their job escalates into we want revenge.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what the jury's really going to analyze.
Yeah, we heard testimony yesterday from one of the other officers involved in this who has done a plea deal about a run tax. And anybody who from the streets, if you deal with criminals, they all know when you run from police, when they get you, you know they're going to apply what they call a run tax. You're going to get a beating, right? But what this is doing, and we've seen a blueprint for this type of thing when we talk about the Rodney King case. What did they do? We saw that beating. You see it, you say, okay, it's absolutely excessive force. But what they did was they slowed it all down. They said, at this point, he's not complying. This is why we did this. At this point, he's not complying. This is why he did this. I would imagine they're going to do pretty much the same thing. Here we are. We're trying to get him to get his arms behind his back. He's not complying. Here we are trying to do this. He's not complying. This is why the beating continued. Do you think that's something that might work under these circumstances?
Look, Michael, that's the defense. You know, it really comes to the type of jurors that you have and whether they can understand this kind of groupthink. I just think the video of the actual beating, the striking, the violent nature of the striking, it goes far away from getting the defendant to comply into getting a beatdown revenge. When the beatdown is so excessive, they forget what the purpose is to stopping him in the first place, which is compliance, handcuffing him and getting him into the car. You don't want a comatose client, right? You want someone that you can arrest, have an ethical, legal arrest, you put him in the back, and it's finished. This goes to a level where the jury has to decide, was this level reasonable conduct? And I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's hard to escape the brutality of the beating at the end of the day. But we'll continue to watch it and follow this case. Silva, thank you so much for joining me tonight on the show. Always a pleasure. Kisses to you as well. All right, folks, stick around because coming up next, we're going to review the 3 things that we've learned today in the cases we've been covering from coast to coast right here on CourtTv.